Ladies, today I want to speak a truth that is often invisible yet profoundly damaging: the way a narcissistic husband treats the woman he claims to love. Love is supposed to feel safe. It should make you feel seen, supported, and cherished. But in the presence of a narcissistic husband, love becomes a weapon, a cage, a tool for control. At first, he may appear perfect, devoted, attentive, overwhelming in his affection. This stage, often called love bombing, feels like a dream. She is showered with compliments, gifts, and promises, but the magic is a mirage. Behind it lies a careful plan to create dependence and trust that he can later exploit. At the beginning of the relationship, a narcissistic husband often seems like a dream come true. He showers his wife with attention, compliments, gifts, and grand romantic gestures that make her feel extraordinary. Every word, every touch, every act feels carefully designed to make her believe she has found a once-in-a-lifetime love. He tells her she is the most beautiful, most intelligent, most deserving woman in the world. He listens intently, at least at first, making her feel deeply understood and cherished. This stage is called love bombing, and it is far more than mere romance. It is a strategic tool. The narcissist is not just showing affection, he is establishing trust, dependency, and admiration. By making her feel uniquely special, he creates a psychological bond that is difficult to break later. She begins to believe that this love is unconditional, that she is safe, and that she has finally found someone who truly sees her. The danger lies in the fact that this love is conditional and performative. Every compliment, every gift, every tender gesture has an invisible string attached. She is being trained to associate his affection with compliance, obedience, and admiration of him in return. The woman feels exhilarated, intoxicated by the intensity of the love, unaware that it is a carefully orchestrated trap. Over time, this idealization becomes the lens through which she judges the entire relationship. She may overlook early red flags because the memory of that perfect attention lingers. When the mask begins to slip, the contrast feels confusing and devastating. How could the same man who once adored her so intensely now criticize, dismiss, or manipulate her? Understanding this stage is crucial. Recognizing that love bombing is not true love, but a calculated strategy, allows the woman to maintain her emotional boundaries and protect her self-worth before deeper harm occurs. The ideal love is a mirage, intense, dazzling, and ultimately a tool to establish control. Once the initial stage of idealization fades, the narcissistic husband's true patterns begin to emerge. Emotional manipulation becomes the core of the relationship, often so subtle that the woman doesn't immediately recognize it. Words are twisted, events are reframed, and her feelings are minimized or dismissed. Over time, she begins to doubt herself, her memory, and even her own instincts. Every disagreement may be reframed as her fault. A simple misunderstanding can become evidence of her inadequacy or emotional instability. He might tell her she is too sensitive, too demanding, or overreacting, making her question whether her feelings are valid. This constant erosion of trust in her own perception leaves her vulnerable and more dependent on his version of reality. The manipulation is often gradual and insidious. It may start with small comments, casual criticisms disguised as jokes, seemingly helpful advice, or questioning her decisions. Over time, these subtle tactics accumulate, creating an environment where she feels anxious, guilty, and perpetually wrong. Emotional manipulation is not just out control. It is about creating a cycle of self-doubt that reinforces his power in the relationship. Through this manipulation, he ensures that she prioritizes his emotional state over her own. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious ways a narcissistic husband controls the woman he claims to love. It's a tactic that attacks her perception of reality, making her question her memory, feelings, and even her sanity. What she once trusted as truth becomes a source of doubt because he systematically rewrites events, denies promises, and dismisses her emotions as overreactions or imaginations. In the early stages, it may appear subtle. He might say, "That never happened," or "You're remembering it wrong." But over time, these small denials pile up, creating a world in which she increasingly relies on his version of reality. She starts to question herself. Am I imagining things? Was I really too sensitive? Did I make a mistake? The psychological impact is devastating because it undermines the very foundation of self-trust. Gaslighting is not just about lying, it's about eroding confidence and autonomy. He often mixes truth with distortion, making her doubt the clarity of her own judgment. Even when evidence exists, he may twist it or minimize its significance. The effect is a constant state of confusion, self-blame, and anxiety. The woman begins to walk on eggshells, fearing that expressing her feelings or asserting her perspective will trigger further denial, criticism, or emotional withdrawal. This manipulation is especially cruel because it masquerades as care or rational discussion. He may claim he's helping her see things clearly or protecting her from overreacting. But in reality, he is establishing control. Every interaction reinforces the idea that she cannot trust herself without his guidance, leaving her dependent, uncertain, and isolated. The heartbreaking truth is that gaslighting makes love feel unsafe. What should be a source of comfort becomes a source of constant doubt and fear. Recognizing gaslighting is a turning point. It is the first step toward reclaiming self-trust, understanding that her feelings and memories are valid, and learning that no one has the right to distort her reality under the guise of love. A narcissistic husband often understands that love can be weaponized most effectively when his partner is alone. Isolation is a deliberate tactic designed to remove the woman from her sources of strength, comfort, and perspective, her friends, family, and even colleagues. By cutting off these connections, he ensures she becomes increasingly dependent on him for emotional validation, guidance, and even a sense of reality. Isolation often begins subtly. He may complain that her friends are too negative, that her family doesn't understand their relationship, or that people are against them. Over time, these comments erode her confidence in others' intentions. Invitations from friends may be questioned or criticized, phone calls monitored or interrupted, and gatherings discouraged with guilt-inducing remarks like, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't leave me for them." The effect is gradual but profound. Without external support, her emotional world shrinks. She begins to rely solely on him for approval and comfort. Any self-doubt, fear, or insecurity is amplified because there is no counterbalance, no trusted voice to reassure her, no safe space to process her feelings. This creates a feedback loop. The more isolated she becomes, the more control he exerts. Isolation also serves another purpose. It protects his public persona. While he may charm and impress outsiders in private, he controls and criticizes. By keeping the woman cut off, he ensures that others remain unaware of the emotional toll she experiences daily. She begins to question her own perceptions while he maintains the appearance of a loving, devoted husband to the outside world. The heartbreak of this isolation is, too, the woman may not even realize how trapped she has become. She may feel guilty for wanting to reach out or fearful of angering him, thinking she is at fault for the growing distance from her suppo. In a healthy relationship, love is not a reward. It is a constant, unwavering support that nurtures and sustains. But with a narcissistic husband, affection is rarely unconditional. His love is a tool, given selectively based on whether the woman meets his expectations, complies with his wishes, or maintains his carefully constructed image of her. She quickly learns that praise, attention, or intimacy are not freely offered, they are earned. Conditional affection creates a relentless cycle of anxiety and self-monitoring. She begins to constantly ask herself, have I done enough to deserve his approval? Did I say the right thing? Did I meet his expectations? The fear of withdrawal of love or attention becomes a controlling force. Even minor disagreements or independent choices can trigger coldness, silence, or subtle punishments, reinforcing the idea that she must always walk on eggshells to maintain his approval. This type of love is deeply confusing. Moments of warmth feel genuine, leading her to cling to the hope that if she tries harder, she can restore the initial perfect love. Yet, no matter how much she adapts, the affection remains unstable, fleeting, and dependent on his moods or agenda. It becomes a game she can never fully win. The danger of conditional affection is that it teaches her to tie her self-worth to his approval. She begins to measure her value not by her own standards, goals, or accomplishments, but by whether she is enough for him. This erodes her autonomy, making it harder to set boundaries or assert her needs without guilt or fear of reprisal. Recognizing this pattern is crucial. True love does not fluctuate based on performance, obedience, or perfection. It uplifts, nurtures, and remains steadfast even in moments of disagreement. Conditional affection, on the other hand, is a mechanism of control disguised as love, keeping the woman kept in a cycle of striving, self-doubt, and emotional dependence. The first step toward liberation is understanding that she deserves consistent, unconditional love, love that empowers rather than punishes, that celebrates rather than controls, and that nurtures rather than isolates. She is not responsible for earning the affection she deserves. It is her right simply because she is worthy. One of the most confusing and painful aspects of living with a narcissistic husband is the stark contrast between how he behaves in public versus in private. To the outside world, he may appear charming, generous, attentive, and even the ideal partner. Friends, family, and colleagues may see a man who is loving and devoted, a man any woman would envy. But behind closed doors, the reality is entirely different. In private, he may be controlling, critical, dismissive, or emotionally abusive. The woman quickly learns that her safety and emotional well-being depend on her ability to navigate his moods, meet impossible expectations, and avoid triggering criticism. The public facade protects him from accountability while intensifying her isolation, as she fears revealing her struggles will result in disbelief, judgment, or further manipulation. This duality creates profound confusion. She may ask herself, is it me? Am I imagining things? How can he treat me this way if everyone else thinks he's perfect? The constant dissonance between his public charm and private cruelty erodes her confidence, makes her second-guess her perceptions, and deepens her emotional entrapment. The public versus private persona is not accidental, it is a deliberate strategy. By maintaining a flawless image externally, he shields himself from consequences while controlling the narrative of their relationship. She may feel powerless, trapped between a man who appears adored by the world and a partner who tears her down behind closed doors. Understanding this pattern is essential for her liberation. True love is consistent and transparent. It does not rely on secrecy or deception to maintain power. Reconnect. A narcissistic husband often works quietly but relentlessly to undermine the woman's self-worth. This is not always overt criticism. It can be subtle, disguised as jokes, advice, or concern. Her achievements, appearance, decisions, and even her emotions may be belittled or ignored. Over time, these constant micro-assaults chip away at her confidence, leaving her vulnerable, dependent, and questioning her own value. She may hear comments like, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Or, "You look tired, maybe you shouldn't try that." What seems small at first compounds over months and years. The woman begins to internalize the narrative that she is inadequate, incapable, or unworthy of love. Even her successes are often minimized or dismissed, making her feel she can never truly meet expectations, no matter how hard she tries. Undermining self-worth serves a clear purpose. It strengthens his control. A woman who doubts herself is easier to manipulate, easier to guilt, and easier to keep dependent. She begins to measure her value through his approval rather than her own intrinsic worth, constantly seeking validation while rarely receiving genuine support. This erosion of self-esteem often leads to a dangerous cycle. She may overcompensate, striving harder to please him, only to face further criticism or rejection. Her identity slowly becomes defined by his standards rather than her own, leaving her disconnected from her passions, her voice, and her sense of self. The heartbreaking truth is that the man who claims to love her is systematically teaching her to believe she is not enough. Recognizing this manipulation is crucial. She must understand that her worth is inherent, that no one has the right to diminish her, and that genuine love nurtures, uplifts, and affirms rather than controls and erodes. Reclaiming self-worth is a journey. It begins with awareness, self-codes, compassion, and the courage to set boundaries. It is about trusting herself, celebrating her strengths, and realizing that she is deserving of love that honors her value rather than diminishes it. One of the most exhausting and damaging behaviors of a narcissistic husband is his relentless avoidance of responsibility. In his world, he is rarely, if ever, at fault. Instead, every problem, every conflict, and every moment of tension is reframed as the woman's fault. This is called blame shifting, and it is a powerful tool for maintaining control. Even when he clearly makes a mistake or behaves hurtfully, he will twist the narrative to make her feel responsible. She might hear statements like, "If you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have reacted this way," or "You made me feel this way. It's your fault." Over time, she internalizes this message, questioning her own actions and feeling constant guilt. She begins to apologize for things she didn't do and take responsibility for emotions she didn't create. This behavior serves multiple purposes. First, it protects him from accountability, allowing him to maintain the illusion of perfection both in private